Okay, Joe, so I know I am preaching to the choir here, but I'm going to paint you a little picture. It's Monday morning. You open your laptop or you have a big computer. You can look at your computer. You have 30 unread emails, 8 Slack messages, which to you is just like the worst thing in the world, a couple of texts from people, and you start reading, and then 2 hours later, you've replied to everything and you've accomplished nothing. And maybe you felt busy, but you can't name a single thing that moved Lifestar or the Aspiring Solopreneur podcast forward. And we've talked about this a lot, and the real problem isn't really volume, because that can just be there, but it's that you're treating every message as equally important because they all live in the same stream. And so how many times have you reread the same email thread 3 or 4 times just to remember what you agreed to do?
I mean, this is a problem everybody has, right? I mean, and I want to say, I know I've been talking about this for a while, but I don't have this problem now because I'm using the beta version of the Lifestar app, which has solved that problem.
Shameless plug.
Shameless. I'm not even trying to plug, but I'm just saying. But I mean, the scenario you just described of the 8 Slack messages and how many unread emails, that was a good day back in the day. I mean, my story is I got to work on I think it was a Monday, got in about 8:30, all these plans, and I opened up my email and I was responding and, going back through it and getting replies to my replies. And next thing it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon and nothing had moved. And I said, never again. And that's when I went on a quest to not have this be how my life goes. So yeah, I get it. I get it. And it's painful. And yes, I have done all these things, way too many times. And I won't do it anymore. I have a new way that I like a lot better.
Well, so you mentioned the app. And one of the things that we've been trying to figure out is what really does make it different, that makes it so streamlined as opposed to opening up. And again, this is not an episode promoting the app. It's a nice add-on to the episode. But
Yeah.
we've identified. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not, you can do this other ways, right? And we can talk about just kind of ways that anybody can do this using their email clients. But anyway, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just want to say that this is not, we don't have to talk about the app.
No, fair. But I think it's one of the things we've identified through Lifestar and through the app and everything is the difference between communication versus commitments. And we've really started leaning into commitments. So can you share with our audience the real difference there and why it's such a game changer to focus on commitments versus communication?
Well, I think what we do is we use communication to make commitments, but it's a pretty soft. I mean, we send an email, we send a Slack message. Yeah, I'll get that to you by Friday. And where does it live? It lives in your head. It lives in a Slack thread that's, by the time Friday comes is 240 lines above any place you're going to scroll to. So, I mean, the problem is that, and this is especially true. A lot of people use to-do lists, right? And that's great. You might say, I'll get that to you by Friday. Goes on my to-do list. Maybe you put it on your calendar. I don't love that because I don't like using calendars for to-do lists. But when somebody says, gee, I'm going to get that to you by Friday, where does that live? Well, that lives in a commitment that they made that's in an email, in a Slack message, in a text message, that you are now relying on your memory and pretty much trusting them to follow through on that. And I had the experience way too many times of that trust being misplaced, right? People get busy. I use a to-do list. They don't use a to-do list. And the next thing, it was due on Friday, and Tuesday afternoon, I realized, hey, where is that? And now I've got a problem because I needed that in 2 days of work after it to do what I was supposed to do for Wednesday. And now I'm nudging somebody saying, where is it? And everything falls apart. So this idea of tracking commitments is kind of saying, if somebody says they're going to do something, well, that thing should live in a place that it can be tracked and accessed and remembered and reminded. You can be reminded or they can be reminded of it, so that it's not a situation where somebody makes a promise, forgets, and the next thing, the project or whatever it is you're working on is off the rails.
And Joe, let's kind of introduce what we think a commitment is. It's like a 3-part structure. You have the what, which is like the specific deliverable or action, the who, who owns it, you or your client, and then the when, the deadline or the time frame. Those are the 3 parts, right?
Yeah,
Did I mess that up?
and that's really, I'm glad you brought that up. So the issue here is when you talk about making a commitment, don't just say marketing project, right? Don't just say um, new bike. Say, you know, create a new marketing plan or find a new bike that I can use for my Pan Mass challenge. Um, you want to be very specific when you start talking about, tracking and recording commitments, because if it isn't clear what is being committed to, then they can be up for interpretation. And that's another place where things can fall apart. So I was expecting X, somebody else thought it was Y. They give me Y on time, still nowhere because it's not what I needed.
Well, and I mean, I think to some people that might sound really formal, but you and I, we talk all the time, all day, every day. We can kind of read each other's minds to an extent at some point. And so you think in terms of our situation, it could be really easy for me to just write something and I just assume that you know what I'm talking about. But we have blog posts, we have the podcast, we have everything going on with Lifestar. I mean, just so many balls are moving at all times. And so if I want you to write a blog post and I just put life first business, you'd be like, what am I doing? And in my mind, I'm like, well, he totally understands what I'm saying because we talked about it in our last status. But no, you need that context because there's just always so much going on. It helps to narrow things down to help you remember what you're supposed to be doing.
Right. And so that's very specific. And the next thing you said is running the money. And this is something that I take issue with some tools that are out there for helping people manage their commitments or their to-dos or the projects and that kind of thing. And that is that every commitment needs an owner. And this ability to assign usually it's a task in some kind of a task management system, and to be able to assign it to more than one person, that's just asking for failure because nobody is on the hook for it. And so the way we do it is that, if I come back and I assign something to you and say, Carly, I need you to review this blog by Wednesday. And then you say, I need the link, I mean, that's a little silly, but, let's say that you said, well, you review it and say, I need you to make these changes. You could then create a task back to me, review the changes that I suggested for your blog. And that's on me. Right. And so you're really kind of saying somebody owns each commitment. And it feels a little formal, as you said, but it's the only way that things don't fall apart. And so this idea of being able to assign to agree on a commitment and have it be in the hands of one person is really crucial to successfully running a business on commitment managements.
Anyways, the more and more you do this, it really does become a habit. Again, it might not be second nature at first because you're not used to viewing things as commitments. But every time you finish a call, close an email, wrap up a meeting, whatever, just think, what did I just commit to? And then write it down immediately. And the thing is, we haven't talked about your commitments to yourself. Ooh, I just threw my hair everywhere. It's not just commitments to other people, it's commitments to yourself too. So if you have to even go to the grocery store or whatever, it doesn't have to be work related, write it down immediately in whatever system you're using. I mean, our audience at this point, nobody has access to the Lifestar app. So you're not going to be using that at the time of this recording, and even the time of this release. But whatever system you trust, whether it's a notebook, a spreadsheet, whatever, the tool doesn't matter, but the habit does. And if it is a commitment to your clients, not just yourself, train them to do it too. Because every interaction with a short recap, so here's what we agreed on, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, and you're getting me ZZ by Friday. Does that sound right? And getting that verbal confirmation. It just takes 60 seconds to add that into your conversation or your email or whatever. But it will reduce the overall time that you allocate to this commitment or to the task within the commitment by so much.
Yeah, it's
Right?
and you, as you said, track those commitments you're making to other people, track the ones that you're making to yourself, but track the ones that other people are making to you, because those are the ones where I usually saw the most failure, right? Where all of a sudden it was like somebody promised to do something and then didn't do it on time, and then you're stuck with the leftover of being, 3 days late on what you were expecting to do your part of things. So it really is, it really is helpful. And then, um, another aspect is that you really want to try to classify these things in the context of what aspect of your business or your life. We use what we call tags, right? We just tag things, and we all have our own system of tags that we like to use. But the concept of adding that can help you to filter when you're working on X. You can be only looking at the items that match X. You're not looking at buy toothpicks at the grocery store, which might be something you would be looking at when you were going grocery shopping. So just having that concept of separating, and maybe even keeping separate lists for different aspects of your life, so that the grocery shopping stuff isn't mixed in with your work stuff. Have those lists separate. That can be a helpful approach. I mean, I did all of this on paper. I have this whole paper thing that I used for a few years, actually, as I figured out how I wanted to be able to manage commitments. And I had my to-do list. I had a list of things that I was waiting for from other people. This is all David Allen's Getting Things Done, by the way. And then I had a list of projects I was working on. And I've had, at one point, I used these cards that went inside of a book, and each card was a project. And I would write the name of the project. I could see that tucked into this, it's like a bunch of cards. I have it somewhere here. I'll find it sometime. And it would
Yeah.
say the name, and then I could pull the card out and then write what was the status of the project was. You run out of room sometimes, and then you'd have to add another card. Some of them were 4 thick in the little pocket, but it was at least organized, and I was keeping track of these things and what I was expecting and from other people and what I was committing to do. And then all of that also went on. My stuff went on a to-do list, or waiting for list, etc. So a little manual, a little time consuming, but way better than the alternative.
Yeah. Of just tracking every single conversation and communication
And
you
yeah,
have.
yeah, in email threads, and then text messages, Slack messages, whatever else messaging app you're using, and then really just try to keep it in your head and remember it. And if you can do that, you're a genius. I am not. I couldn't remember them
You're a genius in your own right.
in my own mind.
Well, great.
Genius in my
Well,
own mind.
exactly. Well, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, leave that 5-star review. It helps us spread the word to other solopreneurs who are trying to lead a life first business and get organized, like we're talking about today. Subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. And pause. I have a pause from Joe.
I just want to mention one thing because it's official. We are now in the top 2% of all podcasts globally. And I'm very excited for that. And thank you all for making that a reality by, listening to the show. Please keep doing it. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I'm excited.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so excited too. I'm so glad you said that. And share this episode with friends so we can get to the top 1%, you guys. And we will see you next time on The Aspiring Solopreneur.